Adam's program was the last chink in the armor, and now MacNote users don't even know that you guys exist because he completely hid you away from us. In the year 2000, I went to the Apple Developer Conference in San Jose for the first time. At that conference, Apple was going to give developers the release version of OS X. Okay, so in the keynote address, Steve Jobs told us that there had been a minor renaming, and the release version would be called OS X Public Beta. And instead of costing $130, it would cost $15. So after the keynote address, the person standing next to me said, "Let me translate. OS X has been delayed by a year." And he was right. So at that conference, Apple had a sort of SOP for the developers. For the only time that I know of, they had a software raffle. But it turned out, in the end, that virtually everybody just got a piece of schlocky software. It was a cardboard and a CD and a shrink wrap, right? So after the keynote address, there were two lines. One line got the OS X public beta. That line had two people. I was number 2 in that line. The other line had everybody else in this long line trying to get the software. Okay, so I was looking. I lost my slide? Why?
So maybe it's just temperamental here.
Oh, that's, well, tell me. So I was reading this talk that I just am supposed to give, and it's pretty dull. So I decided I needed something, and I decided to learn from Apple, and I'm going to give you all a piece of schlocky software. What I have right here, I want everybody to take it, not just Mac users. And what you have here is a thumb drive, right? And it says on the back, for Mac, check. For Windows, check. For Linux, check. Great. So there you are. I know that most of you don't have Macs, so that's fantastic. I want you to do a little dance as you throw away the Mac software. There we go. Incidentally, I need to tell one thing. The packages look like two things, but the thumb drive is exactly the same, and so is the software. You know, Amazon will sell you anything. They will sell you a casket or spinach, okay? But they will only sell you 45 thumb drives and no more. So, let's go. Okay, so what is the software? Well, the main thing is you get a free thumb drive. What do you think? But it actually turns out that this software is a new release of TeXShop version 3.38 together with a change document, and that is being released right now in this room. And it won't be till Thursday that anybody else gets TeXShop. But I won't talk, right. But I will not talk about that. The schlocky piece of software is that right there. And that's what I'm going to talk about first. Okay, so I still have that. So I think you may know that in MacTeX, as you just learned, it's installed as root. We also install a preference which allows users to switch to an old version of TeXLive if the current version has a flaw. So I do that. I have to type in the root password because TeXLive is installed as root. And then all of the graphic interfaces are reconfigured for the other distribution, and the shell is reconfigured for the other distribution. But it seems to me that we made a little mistake. This is a global pref pane, so it changes the distribution for everybody. That's not how the Mac works. In the Mac, you have one copy of Word, but every user has their own preference. So what we really ought to have done is to make different users be able to choose different tech distributions. That's what my schlocky software does. So I'm not only going to show you the software, but I'm going to install it in everything. And this is very dangerous. So there's the thumb drive. Here's local tech. Here's a pref pane. So to install, I just double click the pref pane. It says install for you or install for everybody. Even if you install for everybody, they only get something that handles their own stuff. I'm going to install for myself. Done. There it is. Gee, it looks like the old pref pane. Well, of course, this isn't rocket science. Okay, it does the old stuff. So if I'll choose TeXLive 214. If I want to choose TeXLive 213, there I do it. Notice it didn't ask me for root password because this is just for me. So it doesn't need a root password to just change things for me. Why don't I pull up TeXShop here just to convince you, because I know you think I'm fibbing. Okay. Now I forgot to mention one button. Over here, incidentally, this pref pane does not use any of the data of the old pref pane. So you can use both at the same time. So there is a button that says configure for local pane. I'll do that. It says quit your running applications. I should have known that I want to quit TeXShop and do that first. Configure for local pane. TeXShop was reconfigured, TeXLive Utility was reconfigured, and BibDesk was reconfigured. Yeah.
TeXLive Utility watches user technician paths.
Does what?
It watches some of the paths for changes, so you can actually reconfigure it multiple times.
Oh, that's
We'll
nice.
talk about that afterwards.
Fantastic. Good news. You expect my time on this, spend time on this schlocky piece of software? Okay. Okay, so we're going to come back to TeXShop. Great, and I'll typeset for you. We're supposed to have just used TeXLive 213, and you can see that sure enough, we used TeXLive 213. Now this pref pane has a few extra features. We learned from Adam that you can install tech other places. So if you install on an external drive, the existing pref pane can't handle that, but this thing sure can. So if we just retypeset, did you notice that it found tech on the other partition on my drive? And it talked about people who install tech on their home directory. Well, this pref pane can handle that. So if I just typeset, there's a copy of tech that was installed on my home directory and works perfectly fine. How about tech installed on a zip drive, on a thumb drive? Well, as a matter of fact, you're getting a copy of tech installed on that thumb drive. Right there it is. So, add distribution. Okay, so now I'm going to teach my pref pane about this new distribution. So it's TUG, I don't care what it's called. And in order to work, the system has to know where tech is. Here it is where it is. Swell. It has to know where the binaries are. Here's where the binaries are. Swell, I think. And okay. And now it knows about my thumb drive. And so I'm going to typeset from that. And amazingly, it was really fast. You will find that it doesn't first, and it installed from the thumb drive. That's all my schlocky software does. If you have additional questions, you can read them in the write-up. I didn't claim it was big stuff, so now I promise to give a talk, and I'm back, to my talk. Okay, I think I'm back to my, okay, you're done. So you have that free software, and don't complain to me. So I work way off in a little pond way over there. It's called the Mac world. And on that little pond, I wear two hats. So the first thing I do is to maintain the MacTeX distribution. And the second thing I do is to work with a graphical interface to TeX called TeXShop. It occurred to me that I have completely different philosophies in these two worlds, and that it might be fun to write down what the difference is. So here's the philosophy for MacTeX. If you're not familiar, it installs TeXLive GoScript, some graphical user interfaces. It doesn't ask the user any questions. It just installs. Everything is configured and ready to use. But here comes the philosophy. It installs TeXLive completely unmodified. We would never reach into TeXLive and change something for the Mac. The philosophy is cross-platform rules. Donald Knuth spent a lot of work making open source forever. And do we ever backslash? Yes, there is a high priest, so there's the high priest. And occasionally, and right, okay, there's the philosophy. Now, incidentally, that philosophy is very useful. At meetings like this, occasionally people come up to me and say, I'm having trouble with my Mac collaborators. The stuff just doesn't work on a Mac. And nowadays I get to answer, sir, it is your fault. Okay. Now, too high a standard. Now, for TeXShop, however, my philosophy is completely different. A front end is supposed to mitigate between your operating system and all of its conventions and TeX with all of its conventions. To me, it makes no sense to have a front end that's cross-platform. It doesn't know about your operating system's conventions. So it seems to me that your front end should be tailored to your operating system. I know this is controversial, but I'm the speaker. So what I'm going to do is to produce 3 examples. Is there somebody who keeps time? You. Okay. So thank you. I'm going to give you 3 examples that show why it's important to pay attention to the operating system. Here's example 1. Incidentally, example 1 is not at all convincing. Example 2 is only slightly. And TeXLive uses the popular libraries. So it's often very useful to see what happens in that. So we do that experiment. And here's what we discover. TeXShop and Skim have the problem. TeXWorks and Adobe Reader don't. Well, that sort of seems to be exactly the point I'm trying not to make. And you, meanwhile, are saying, why are you surprised? Adobe invented PDF. The Apple engineers are working on the phone. Okay? But you would be wrong to say that. Well, and there is in these emails a clue. The very first message said, I'm using TeXShop on a Retina display. So as it turns out, the problem is a bug in Apple's Retina display code, which they soon fixed. Well, so why don't TeXWorks and Adobe Reader have the problem? The answer is because they don't support the Retina display at all. And now I can show you how you find that out. If you use get info on a program, you get some information. The information on TeXShop is on the left. The information from Adobe Reader is on the right. Sorry about that. Notice this line, open in low resolution, and a little box you could check. So what that says is TeXShop is supporting the Retina display. But if there is a problem, you could check that box, and then TeXShop would just write its regular code, and the Mac would automatically magnify by 2. And now if you look at what happens on the Adobe side, would you notice that the box is checked and grayed out? Grayed out. Means It can only work in magnified mode. So now I'm having great fun. I'm boasting, see? And I made the mistake of giving exactly the same boast to one of my former students who now works as a software engineer in Portland. His name is Steve Splonskowski. And I said, TeXShop supported the Retina Display from the very first day. And he didn't even pause. He said, yeah, and how many lines of code did that take? The answer is it didn't take any lines of code, 0 lines of code. And the reason is that TeXShop is written with Koch. Programs written with Koch just automatically support the Retina display. The only trouble with this example is that I've never been able to tell the difference between a Retina display. I have a Retina. but that's just a minor side point. Now, I need to talk about Koch. There is a very, very dramatic story that happened at Apple that non-Apple people often don't know about, and even Apple people often don't know about. And it's the history of this Koch environment. So that's the environment that Apple inherited from Next when they bought Next in 1996. And it's the modern way to program the Mac, and it's the only way to program the iPhone and the iPad. It's the modern way to program the Mac. But that doesn't mean that it was popular from the beginning. Far from it. At the very first time Apple told developers about it, they said you have to write programs for the new system using Koch. Not a single developer you've ever heard of endorsed that. Silence from Microsoft, silence from Adobe, silence from everyone. So the next year, Steve Jobs announced a new way to program the Mac called Carbon. And Carbon was the old way to program the Mac with sort of tweaks tweaks. And they got endorsements from Microsoft and Adobe and everybody else. And it was amazing. Apple has come to their senses. And then all the small developers said, well, look at what the large developers, so everybody went to Carbon. Steve Jobs said, we call it Carbon because carbon is the basis of all life. Okay? So when I went to the developer conference, and this was true for many years, you'd go to a Carbon session. It was held in the largest possible room. There were thousands of people packed together. The Koch session in San Jose was held across the street in a converted church. Okay, what do I need to do? I need to, that's it. In a converted church, and there were about 35 people there, and they all seemed to know each other. And sort of, what were your old days at Next like? That was sort of, now you might think very rapidly life changed. Absolutely not at all. If you talk to engineers at Apple, there were rumors that they would switch from Objective-C to Java. They once actually, in one of the betas, they actually used Java, wasn't Objective-C, and you started the editor and it was popped up, and this time you started the editor and it ground for 40 seconds trying to load Java before, okay. So to me, the great story of Apple is that they got very, very wealthy. And that gave them the courage to deprecate Carbon and say you must use Koch. Carbon still works, incidentally. From about 1996 on, there are no sessions on Carbon. It's never mentioned at the developer conference. Everything is Koch. You know, when you think of this time at Apple, maybe you're thinking it is the greatest second act in American business history. Or perhaps you're thinking it's the start of the mobile era. To me, none of all that misses the point. It's the great triumph of Koch over Carbon. Okay, so now how does Koch work? And many of you know a lot more about this than I do, but I'm talking. So the way this works is that when you start a COCO program, you get something that already works. There's a window, there's a save menu, you can save documents, you can load documents, everything works. The window doesn't have anything in it. When you save a document, it's empty. Okay, so we call those the base classes. Apple gave us the base classes, and they're all connected up. So a programmer subclasses these base classes to add the actual functionality of the program. So that means that two things are happening. The base classes from Apple down here, the programmer subclass up here, they're moving together. That's how COCO works. And I don't care what your platform is, you know about this. There is a dream when you had this invention. Here's the dream. Apple could rewrite the base classes, and then, without even recompiling your program, it would suddenly behave differently. That's the dream. But as it turns out, there was a problem called the fragile base class problem, which stood in the way of making that dream correct. When Apple switched to 64 bits, they realized that they had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to fix that problem, because there were no 64-bit applications out there that you had to be compatible with. And they did that. They made lots of changes to Objective-C to fix that problem. And then Apple made engines obsolete. Suddenly, PowerPC is not supported anymore. 32-bit Intel is not supported anymore. Even if 32-bit kernel, that's not supported anymore, right? Everybody said Apple was really, really arrogant. Other people said the key thing was that 64 bits is really fast. I don't think either of those is true. What's true is if everybody had 64 bits, they could use this modern Objective-C. So Apple is in this ideal situation where they have the same underlying technology underneath all their hardware. Okay, well, you've got my point in spades. So let's go on. So now it is my task to show you how TeXShop takes advantage of those things. Okay, I wonder if I can do this. Let me pause and regroup. So I'm going to open TeXShop. I'm talking to myself, just forget. There's TeXShop open. I'm going to open a project. Open recent. There's a project. I'm going to resize the windows. Resize that window. I'll move this window over here, and I'm going to quit. Okay, so there is a feature in TeXShop that my users kept requesting. The request was, when you start TeXShop again, it should display all the old windows in their exact positions that they were in when you left them. And that would not have been very hard, but I'm lazy. The other guy's lazy. I'm lazy. So I just never got around to it. So then the users really started jabbing the pin in, and they tell me about other graphic interfaces that already had that feature. Pretty soon it looked like I was the only person in the entire world that didn't do that. Okay? So I want the windows to, I want you to imagine my surprise when I ran Lion for the first time, and TeXShop did that. Without a single line of code, I wasn't even aware of this. Remember the dream? They could revise the base classes, and then automatically, even without recompiling, you get new features. And I didn't have to do any work. Incidentally, there's one other advantage. Apple has been tweaking this feature. So of course, TeXShop gets all the tweaks automatically. Well, that's all there is to that. It's a matter of sheer laziness. I could have done that otherwise. Are you ready for example 3? Yeah.
What happens if you actually program for the feature and then they took the run under you and changed?
Right. I second your question as a statement. The lesson is you should be lazy if it's all possible.
I will try.
Okay, I'm ready to show you the third feature. Now, the third feature is a feature I would never have dared implement myself because it monkeys around with the file system. And there's nothing I fear worse than a mathematician writing me and saying, I solved the Riemann hypothesis, but I never did back it up. And your okay, that point is made. So I want to start TeXShop again, and I just want to type something. This is the TUG conference. I can't type anything. Why is it important? Why? Who cares what I type? And then I'll just quit. I'll do that again. I'll just quit. Wait, why did I type and then quit? Oh, okay, so I'll start TeXShop again. Whoa! It remembered what I typed. How did it do that? Let me do an experiment for you. Here's the save file. I'll save. So it says, what name do you want to give the file and where do you want me to put it? Why are you asking me this question? You already saved. You must know the answer. I'm going to cancel that. Well, let's try this with an actual program here. So let me open this thing called Open Recent Galois. Let's work with something real. Okay, so again, this is TUG. And also, I don't like these first two paragraphs, so I'm just going to get rid of the two paragraphs. And then, I'm going to quit TeXShop. And then I'm going to restart TeXShop. The two paragraphs are gone. The stuff I typed is there. The truth is that Apple has added this feature called automatic saving, and essentially the Mac never asks me to save. If there's an emergency call and somebody says, everybody is drowning, I shut off TeXShop. It doesn't say, save this, save this, save this. It shuts off, but everything is saved. Automatic saving. But wait, there's more. The program automatically saves every 5 minutes or so. And you're saying, every 5 minutes your program saves my 1,000-page source document? Of course not. It just looks at the changes and it saves that. I don't know. Okay, that's going to work. Thank you. How did it do that? I don't know, but I don't need to know. Okay, but you say, wait, there's more. I like to experiment. I try something, it doesn't work, I can't check my document anymore. Pretty soon I'm just enormously confused, and so I just quit the program and I don't save. You're telling me it's saving underneath me, so it's saving all these errors, and pretty soon I have a document I can't work with anymore. This is terrible. Okay, well, TeXShop has this thing called revert to, browse all versions, and when I do that, I get all the old versions of the document, and I could just retreat to this version, right? Or I could come back here. So the version that's shown here has that original stuff. There are many things I could do at this point, but one thing I could do is simply copy this stuff and put it back over here where it belongs, and I'm right back. Hit done. I'm right back where I started. Okay, so
Or can you not just reinstate that version.
Or I could reinstate the, absolutely, either one. Or I could reach back and copy a little thing from 2 weeks ago. I come from Kansas. You're saying you don't need all this automatic saving. You don't know what a thunderstorm is like. The power company is, okay. Now let me say two more things. On the left, you see the menu as it is in the current TeXShop source. On the right, you see the same menu as displayed on Mavericks. You will notice that the middle section down here is completely different. When this version of TeXShop appeared, people wrote me and they said, there's no save as, you've got to put it back, you must be stupid. And I said, it's still there in the source code, Apple just ignores it. And the users didn't find that very comprehensible. Okay. But what you really want to know is how much code did it take to implement autosave? There's the complete TeXShop code for implementing autosave. Now, everybody takes away from my talks the wrong lesson. So the lesson I'm trying to teach is, if you obey the frameworks, everything will be easy and your users will be happy. And I bet you are translating right in your head, and here's your translation. This guy is the laziest guy I've ever seen, and he boasts about features, but he hasn't written a single line of... So that's right. But now, as my final parting shot to you, I have to talk about something where I did write some code. The trouble with object-oriented programming is that you have to worry about memory management. Over the last few years, the central part of TeXShop has worked fine, but around here there was a periphery, and if you went into the periphery, you crashed. And I don't know exactly where that was because I stayed away from it. Okay, so I've known that something had to be done about that. Apple adopted garbage collection, and then it didn't work on the phone. And now it's deprecated, and instead they invented this amazing thing called automatic reference counting, in which the compiler does memory management rather than you. And moreover, you can do this on a source-by-source level. So this spring, while Apple was giving me this great stuff to talk about, I went through the TeXShop source by source, turned on automatic reference counting for each file, went through the errors and removed them, and now as of version 3.34, TeXShop has automatic reference counting, and those crashes have disappeared, except for one mysterious crash that happened last night to somebody, which we're not going to talk about. It turns out that there were little parts that I didn't quite do. That's all done in version 3.38, which you have today. So TeXShop is all set for the future. I'm going to make it. It's all set for the future. It's very important that I did that, and it will now last until J.S. Bach supplants it all.
Any questions or comments for? It's a jewel.
As someone whose entire market was destroyed by the transition from carbon to cocoa, I just want to say that Apple, yeah, they had a lot of money and they had a lot of new stuff, but the reason that they are successful is also because they're willing to deprecate lots of stuff in the past.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I agree with that. It was very, very painful for, I mean, the most famous example to us is textures, which was written in carbon.
Yes,
Just
please.
a short comment. The last feature about saving your edits and then doing it, it was nice. I just want to remind that we users of editors like VI and Emacs have had this feature since 1970s.
I was going to.
Good point.
Although Emacs, autosave doesn't keep every version going back forever unless you tell it to.
You can do it. It's
You can do it, but it doesn't just happen.
And mostly it doesn't. If you need everything, you probably better use some version control system anyway.
Are there any other Yes, I was going to say that. Yeah, it was like when people, when the PC arrived, thought that computing began with DOS, and I was just going to say VMS has had versioning forever.
Yeah,
So
VMS
I know Steve Jobs invented hybrid technology and solar technology and the internal combustion engine and everything under the sun. But yeah, there were a few other computer engineers that had these ideas a little bit before.
I think TeXShop kept all the old files, gave them version numbers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other comments? Yes, Steve.
So Apple has all these frameworks, and if you drill down into those folders, you see that they're kind of arranged according to version A, version B, and then dates and so forth. So is there any way that the tech world can sort of leverage off of whatever their design is, or is it just too wildly different? Or, I don't know. It's just a thought.
Right, the answer is that I'm too naive a user to ask that question. The way I use this, I need a feature, I look at the documentation,